Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's a very flat week, down about 0.5%, £1,000. A bit of a mixed bag on gains and losses. Some bits are going down. Google went up. That's only a small position. But what does seem to be doing well, sort of in the last few weeks at least, is the base metals. So I've sort of not really mentioned Atalaya mining recently. It sort of dropped down to quite a red position for me, sort of September time last year. In the sort of even got under £2, £1 sort of 97. But I mean, if you bought the lows there, you're up sort of 90%, and it's gone green for me again. I'm at £3.20. This is sort of largely due to the drastically rising copper price. So we're back to sort of not the highs necessarily, but yeah, people are sort of comparing it to, it was high £4, $4, and we're at $4.24. But you look at sort of pre-COVID, it spent quite a long while at sort of under $3, and sort of the long-term average really has been sort of $2.50 to $3 really. So yeah, to be at sort of 4.25, yeah, the last sort of 6 months, it's doing well. Still forecast, as I say, sort of mentioned this before, still forecast for a surplus in supply for the next couple of years, and then sort of moving into deficit onwards, really, as sort of green energy transition, EVs, all manner of sort of things, infrastructure kicks off, and sort of the new mines aren't coming online from then. So yeah, interesting sort of long-term future for copper. Maybe people are sort of pricing this in a bit in advance. I think at the moment it's sort of partly just Chinese reopening. But yeah, the copper stocks are doing well. A couple of my others, Glencore and Vale, both into nickel as well. It's sort of not the hugest part of their business, but could potentially sort of in the future be promising. And that sort of had this strange spike on a sort of short squeeze, a bit of manipulation, I think, that went wrong. And yeah, again, sort of past 5 years or so, 3 or 4 years before COVID, it was 12,000 to 17,000 really, and we're at 27,000. Again, down from the peak, but it's sort of recovering and doing pretty well. So it could grow. As I say, Vale and Glencore, nickel price could double, and it wouldn't be a massive part of their business. But I think they're looking to grow. It's sort of not really a huge market, so potentially as the EV market grows, if they do end up using nickel type batteries, then it would do well. We're always looking at sort of different chemical compositions for batteries and sort of trying to get rid of nickel. So depends on how many vehicles use that type of battery, really. So the copper price and the iron ore price, as I've shown, sort of steadily rising up, possibly again on the China reopening. That is doing wonders for Vale over the last sort of 6 months, really. As you can see, sort of 45% up over the last 6 months. But there is a little bit of sort of disappointment for me, really. I was kind of hoping this would be a long-term hold, but they're looking to split up the base metals and iron ore side. Obviously, iron ore is base metals, but basically a sort of the smaller base metals side. So they're sort of taking bids for 10% of the other base metals side. The sort of copper, cobalt, nickel, and platinum group metals side. So long term, they want to split these two up and potentially sort of float. I forget what they call it. It's a sort of, they would look to have it as Vale base metals. and sort of float that and have sort of a primarily iron ore miner and then a separate company with all the rest, which I could kind of see Vale just being an iron ore miner, being incredibly low PE, not maybe not something that everyone wants to hold, and the sort of Vale base metals, the new one, being ending up overvalued. But we'd see how it goes. I guess we would get sort of shares of both if you hold them in the long term. Probably just from this 10% sale, you just get a dividend, a special dividend or something. But if they were to split the whole company, then you'd have shares in both, and I could kind of see the sort of nickel copper side getting overvalued. Just me, but could sort of see certainly the copper alone miners like Southern Copper do sort of attract quite a high valuation in comparison to people like these. So yeah, not sure I would want to hold both really long term. I may end up sort of consolidating in a couple of years into something like Rio Tinto or Glencore or something. I like the sort of diversified sort of conglomerate type miners with lots of different commodities. But we'll see. Just sort of looking at Vale's split. Third quarter 2022, they are still very, very heavily in iron ore. So we'll see $3.7 billion in basically just iron ore, and then 3.7 billion in EBITDA, and sort of 200 million in nickel, 155 in copper. It appears to be, because it's not quite as profitable. 479 million. 479 million revenue in copper for only 155 million EBITDA, and nickel 1.5 billion in revenue for only 200 million in EBITDA. So I guess that really does need the sort of EV transition to go nickel's way and sort of raise that price up quite a lot. 1.3 billion in just costs, without your sort of R&D and sort of smaller other items, whereas your iron ore sort of 7.8 billion for 3.7 billion in EBITDA. So yeah, I can see why they maybe want to split it from their business point of view, but as a shareholder, I sort of quite like having them all. They do say that they think the copper, nickel, sort of platinum group metal side eventually could be bigger than the iron ore side, basically, which is quite an ambitious target, I guess, but who knows. So my other side, similar to Vale, Rio Tinto released their fourth quarter production and guidance for next year. So this doesn't include financials. This is just sort of mined amounts, and yeah, it sort of looks reasonably good. The iron ore is up on last year, sort of 4 to 6% on shipments and production. Aluminium up 3%, which is good. Copper, though, down 1%. Not the end of the world, but for the full year, up 6%. So that was good. But if you come down to guidance, which I guess is more important, must look forward always on stocks. Broadly the same guidance for next year compared to this year. Iron ore and aluminium quite similar, but copper is up quite a lot because they had their share in the Turquoise Hill mine in Mongolia, and they've acquired sort of the remainder, or as much as they can do, because the government still owns some. But yeah, they've acquired sort of as much as they can now, and so they've sort of always reported this on the share that they own in terms of mined amount, and yeah, now that's going up to between 650 and 710,000 tonnes of copper. So that's pretty good, diversifying away from Iron ore a little more, still obviously very largely in iron ore, but every little helps to be getting a bit more diversification. So yeah, not really too much to talk about this week. Sort of ISA hasn't really moved that much. Sylvania Platinum's down a little. The short ETFs sort of haven't been going too well so far. The short Nvidia one is down quite a bit. Don't think, yeah, that's not right. That's a manual price because the price doesn't come up. I think that's down about 15% or so. So I was a little early on Nvidia, or wrong, as you probably should say. And whilst we got Hive blockchain doing pretty well because Bitcoin's up, but obviously still down quite a bit. Silvergate sort of recovering a little. It was sort of $12, $11. Pan American Silver doing quite well on the silver rise, but First Majestic in the ISA sort of having a bit of a downside, which is unusual. And yeah, Chinese tech still powering ahead. Baba and Baidu up for the week. Strangely enough, Tencent has been rising quite a bit, but Prosus hasn't seen that gain, so not quite sure what they're up to, whether this is sort of exchange issues on the exchange, or sort of whether they've been selling more, or people just don't associate the link between Prosus and Tencent all the time. You can't expect it to move sort of absolutely one-to-one. Maybe Prosus got a bit ahead of itself and sort of now isn't moving, or maybe there's a big move to come. But we'll see. It's still sort of my one of two 5-figure positions that I've got with that and Sylvania. So yeah, it's a big position now. But yeah, that's the portfolio for the week. Leave your thoughts in comments below and like and subscribe. See you soon.